So hold on. Okay, so we are live now, and I have with me two youngsters. So I'm also the third one, but I have with me two biological youngsters, people who are doing pretty well in their professional lives, and are also authors. And that's one thing which I share with them. Other than the age, I share with them is that I'm also an author. So I have with me Mohit and Sonali. Mohit and Sonali, they work in different areas. They write across different genres, and we've come together on a single platform today to discuss more about what really prompted all of us to write. How did we get started in this journey? And we're going to have some interesting conversations. We are also in different parts of the country, so some interesting conversations. And we've had some amount of rainfall today, so once in a while, if you experience a blackout, it's perfectly fine. So welcome, Mohit. Welcome, Sonali.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Sure.
much, sir,
Thank
and
you
thank you
so
for the
much.
amazing description.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a very brief description. So let's say a 30-second description from where you are, your background. 30 seconds. I just wanted to introduce yourself to the audiences. Starting with Mohit. Mohit.
Okay, so my full name is Mohit Ashra. I am basically from Lucknow. Currently, I am pursuing visual arts, so that is my field of education. And apart from that, I have written four books which are published internationally, and that is how it goes. Apart from being an author and a visual artist, I also work as a professional content writer for many brands as a freelancer also, and I sometimes pursue jobs as well. So that is how it goes, and my aim is to become a best-selling author someday and create an impact. That is, I think, what every author wonders. So yeah, that was it.
Fantastic, Mohit. So best-selling author. He already is
Great.
in certain areas, but yes, he definitely will make it big. Yes, Sonali. We want to hear from you.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. I am Sonali Sharma. Currently, I'm residing in Mumbai and I've completed my bachelor's degree in accounting finance. I am an ICW aspirant. Along with that, I am an author of three books, and my recent book, Small is the New Big, was a best-selling book in teen self-help. And apart from that, I'm a full-time freelancer, content strategist, and content director for many brands. You can say like it's a full-time freelancing job, and maybe in coming few months, I will be coming up with my own venture, my own agency. So yeah, pretty much excited for the new game to begin in. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Mohit joins in from Lucknow. Sonali is in Mumbai, and here I am
Hmm.
in Gurgaon. Vikas Bansal. और मैं जब इन दोनों को सुन रहा था मुझे अपनी अचीवमेंट थोड़ी कम लग रही थी मोहित ने 4 किताबें लिख दी हैं
No,
सोलह
sir, no, नहीं sir, ऐसा
मैंने
कुछ
No,
नहीं है.
no,
एक
not at all, sir.
no
You are an
so
inspiration for many youngsters like
सर
us.
एग्जैक्टली और लास्ट हमारे लाइव सेशन में भी मैंने ये चीज़ बोली थी कि जितनी मेरी उम्र है उतना आपका सिर्फ एक्सपीरियंस है सर. तो वी
नहीं
आर आई थिंक
That's
नथिंग
true. That's
कंपेयर्ड
true.
कंपेयर्ड टू यू.
so let's
Yeah.
focus on today's topic. Today's topic is more on the writing part and you've written definitely so you've written more than that and I need to give that due credit. So I have written one book and I have a background in engineering, did my MBA from IIM Indore way back in 2001, worked close to 20 years. I now run my own organization which is into training and L&D space. So that's a brief description of who we are. And so starting off with you, Mohit, let's cover some part of your story as to what really prompted you to become an author. And this is
Actually,
for
this
all of the audiences who may be listening to you. Some of them may be ready with a script, but really, I mean, I want you to narrate your story so that some of people listening to this podcast, listening to this live
uh,
session can really be inspired. Yes.
Actually, sir, this goes down to the mentality of my parents. They always knew that in the coming, years, there would be a great importance for English language. So they always pushed me to learn English and to read storybooks in that genre and improve my command over that particular field. Slowly and slowly, stories began inspiring me so much, and it excited me to become an author myself. There was a time I used to read, short stories and story books, but then I slowly came to novels, and then it was a very heavy reading experience. So that is how I, had an ambition of being a writer myself because right from my school days, I knew what I had to do. I had an ambition in my mind, and the goal was pretty clear. So this was how it started, and I think it is going pretty well. It is going pretty well.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So some
That's
part of it, in a way, parents really get some credit about you becoming an author. Fantastic.
Definitely,
How about you,
hundred
Sonali?
percent credit, 100% credit.
yeah. Mine story is something similar. Like since very early age in my childhood, I started reading, and then slowly and gradually, since my mom is already into literature in Hindi, Sanskrit, and Urdu, so I was much more inclined towards books and reading. And she used to write drama scripts, plays, and make students ready for debate and elocution competitions and dramas. And then there was a time in seventh, eighth standard, like I was kind of left out in school, and a child was जो हमेशा अकेला अकेला रहता है and no one takes into the group. So I thought, rather than thinking negatively about it or rather than wasting my time, I switched that direction to writing. And as I said, I used to read a lot. In my seventh standard, there was a book of Sudha Murthy ma'am, and when I read that, there was just one thought that stuck to my mind. Gosh, only if someday even I have one book on the bookshelf with my name. And yes, it happened. When I was in my 12th standard, 12th boards, the first book was published. In the first year of college, two other books were published. So I think that consistency and that, passion towards writing, I think that kept the flow. So yeah, and that's one message that I would like to give to the youngsters. Okay, that no worries if you don't have a lot of friends, and if you feel left out, rather embrace that solitude for your betterment, for your good direction in life, and that is what will help you out.
Fantastic. So, different stories, but yes, a lot of, I would
Yeah.
say, influence or the environment that both these people were in. For me, it was very simple. I have stated my story in a couple of videos also. I attended a physical event, which was how events took place before COVID. So, pre-COVID, I attended an event in early 2020. And in that, I heard one of the speakers talk about the aspect that if you really want to be in the learning and development space, really want to make your mark, you should be an author. And he made a statement, author means authority. So that's something which really stuck with me. But not that I
Mm,
immediately got into action after hearing that speaker, not really.
mm,
But definitely, it's many a time somebody else sows a seed in your mind. That's where the seed was sown. And a couple of months down the
yeah.
line, the lockdown happened. A few weeks down the line, not even a couple of months, a few weeks down the line, the lockdown happened.
And so,
And I believe
mm-hmm.
it gave me that time. I realized this was something which I could really do, and because the seed had been sown, and that's how. So lockdown started 2 or 3 weeks. Everybody enjoyed in the first 2 or 3 weeks because it was
Hmm.
kind of a holiday, a full-time holiday for most of us. But yes, the next lockdown 2.0 it was announced, I realized it just may be longer than all of us anticipated. That's how started writing a book, and that was the journey. So the fact, so inspiration was
Awesome.
the speaker
Yeah.
in the conference,
That's
but
yeah.
it so happened. So I
Hmm.
believe that's how destiny played its part, and that's how the book was written. So no, if somebody had asked me in 2019, I'm being very honest, Mohit and Sonali, somebody asked me in 2019, would you ever want to be an author? My answer would have been no, not really. But yes, and
Okay, okay.
that's how the book was
Mm-hmm.
published. So
Mm.
now that you yourselves are authors, I am sure you would be reading a lot of books. I read a lot of books. So,
Yeah.
Sonali, now this question to you. So, Sonali, any favorite author that you have? You definitely mentioned about Sudha Murthy. I'm sure she would have had a
Yeah.
influence
Yes.
on you when you were a
Yeah.
small. But as on date, so
Hmm.
other than Sudha Murthy, which I'm sure you would be admiring her.
Well, authors, definitely there are many favorites, because books start becoming your favorites. For example, say The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. That is the book, I keep coming back to, because the four agreements that have been stated in that book, they are so powerful and, worth implementing in every day-to-day life activities. So I think one would be the favorite book would be that I would be recommending is The Four Agreements. Another one is The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin Sharma, because the core message the book states is that you don't need the validation or you don't need a proper title to be the leader, because ultimately you are the one who is leading your life. कोई आके आपको बोलेगा नहीं कि आपको आपकी लाइफ में ये करना चाहिए. You have that willingness or the ability in your mind that you have to do something in your life to achieve something, or to take the stand for yourself, to be accountable or showcase your responsibility. तो आई थिंक वहां पे इट कम्स फ्रॉम इनर सेल्फ. कोई आपको आके बोलेगा नहीं आपको ये करना है. सो आई थिंक द लीडर हु हैड नो टाइटल विल बी माय अनदर best recommendation, because these two books have really helped me a lot to change my vision, to, change my perspective, how I used to look towards the thing. So I think these two are the best books I can
So if
recommend.
you had to pick up one author who you really would want to recommend
Um,
to that person, Sudha Murthy, Robin Sharma, or the third one that you mentioned.
then that would be Robin Sharma for sure.
Okay, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So yes, Mohit. So one author and one book, if I were to ask you, which has had a lasting impact. So one author which really stands out for you.
Okay, so before giving out the name, I would like to say that for me, writing journey has been different from Sonali and many other authors as well, because I do not focus on philosophy much. I focus on creativity, and that is why I went into the fiction genre and I went into the fantasy genre further, and that is how I want to present to the world. I want to show them what creativity is. I want to bring that quality out in them. And that being said, my favorite author is J.K. Rowling, because she has created a world which one can only imagine. And there's no such place in real life. There are no such creatures in real life, and no real scenarios like that. But still, everything was possible. It was right here, and she was possible to do it. And that is where I got my inspiration from. Favorite book, again, I come back to her Harry Potter series. I come back to that. That has been my favorite, my inspiration to write. And that is why I'm also a fantasy author. So that is how I've been going since childhood. My aim was to bring out the creativity in myself, because watching cartoons or reading books, it was everything that could not happen in real life. I want to show the world what cannot happen, because sometimes we need to escape the reality, sometimes we need to escape the philosophy. So that is how J.K. Rowling came to be my favorite writer. Of course, characters can show you some things. Characters can be very powerful. They give us very strong messages, but along the way, the entire setup, the creativity, the fantasy world, and the imagination, that is what intrigues me the most.
Perfect. So from Robin Sharma to J.K.
That's
Rowling, and now when I look back as to one person who's really had an influence on me, this was when I was going to conduct my first live session a couple of years back, and one of my very close friends, he's from Ahmedabad, an avid reader. He just happened to ask me. He says, "Why don't you actually read this book?" And this was not really connected to the session, but he told me that this person has been the HR head and he's been sales and been multiple roles. Now, the similarity which I drew from that person was even in my career spanning 20 years, I've been into sales and distribution, product, strategy, financial planning, analytics, customer life cycle. I actually traversed to many different roles. So that's what clicked me. I said, this person has gone through so many different roles. And the name of the person is Chandramoli Venkatesan. He's no longer there. I mean, he passed away sometime during COVID, but he's no longer with us. But his book, Get Better, Getting Better, one of the books which I actually read incidentally, so purely incidental. I read before one of my first live
Mhm,
sessions when I started my business. And in fact, I read two more books from this person. So very practical approach because he's been in corporate world for about 30 plus years, pouring all his
mhm,
experiences that he's had across different organizations. So for somebody, again, talking about the background, so Mohit comes from visual arts, Sonali comes from more of finance and ICWA background. I come
mhm,
in from more of that engineering mindset. So reading somebody for the first
mhm,
time, talking point blank, he had this beautiful summary at the end of each chapter. I said, wow, this is more like an engineer. You read through a chapter and then you have a summary at the end of the chapter. And then he had to a
mhm,
section and he had a summary at the end of the section. So to an engineer, that was a fantastic book. And I loved this presentation.
mhm,
So Chandramali Venkatesan, for some of you who are engineers, very analytical, very thoughtful people. You want to have a very simple read. And I mean, obviously, J.K. Rowling is a simple read, Robin Sharma is a simple read, but very simple, practical business read. Then yes, I found this man to be there right on the blocks. So that's how my fascination with this person started, and one of the books, and I actually told you I read multiple books. So Mohit, if I were to ask you, now I'm sure you read tens of books in a year, but if I were to ask you to spell out two, three books which you feel some more people should be reading other than J.K. Rowling.
Of
We
course,
know
of course.
for J.K. Rowling.
Uh, I would like to say that every book has a different purpose, right? There are books in the non-fiction genre, there are books in the fiction genre. First, we identify that what is your need, and then, depending on my answer, I would like to say if a person wants to read non-fiction, then Rich Dad Poor Dad is the book that is definitely going to help them in life. And Rich Dad Poor Dad is something that will definitely help in growing their business mindset, how to spend money, how to invest it, and how to plan your future. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is one book that I will recommend. Other than that, when we come back to fiction, if not J.K. Rowling, I think someone who is beginning to read, someone who is just starting out, they should always try Indian authors. Indian authors are also very good. For example, you can go for Robin Sharma, you can go for Durjoy Datta. There are very good books written by them, and they will definitely be very good reads because they are philosophically very enlightening. So the books by Robin Sharma and Durjoy Datta, if someone is starting out, they are very good. And even in the later stages of reading, where if someone is reading very much into, tens of books, like you said, they can still go for it. The books will never lose their essence. So that was my pick.
Okay, so starting with Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he's spoken about Datta and some more people. So pick up the book of your choice from these authors, right? Yes, Sonali.
Well, I would firstly go with .com secrets because there are many people who still have that perspective that online business, like, is it really something ye ho sakta hai? So that book will give you a total fresh perspective, and it is a kind of entire guide and how one can start. What, how can they decide their niche, what can be their TG and everything. So .com secrets is the one. Then it would be the Almanac of Naval Ravikant because it guides on wealth creation upon leveraging with the current tools that you have upon self reflection and many more things. And a third book, I think I would go with recent one which I've read, and it is on emotions, it is on friendship, about valuing people. That would be, it is fiction by Khalid Hosseini, The Kite Runner. Very touching book and in depth realization of emotions. So these three I would recommend, and that is fiction,
In
Khalid
fact,
Hosseini one.
I would like to mention this to both of you. As avid
Yes.
readers, I think it is very important to pick out only three books to recommend to someone. I think we've read so many books that,
It's yeah.
yeah, it is very difficult to pick out only three books because in every genre we are reading in so many,
Definitely.
different themes. So three books is not enough. Please give us 30.
So when see
Definitely.
that recency effect will also come into play, as what Sonali mentioned. She picked up
Yeah,
one book that she's recently read, and she mentioned that's related to fiction. But she also mentioned about Almanac of Naval Ravikant and to start out that secrets.com secrets. So
.com secrets.
many times, especially with the kind of books we read, the recency effect, the books that you've recently read, will also be there as a top of the mind recall. So I know with hundreds of books that you may have read, it's very difficult to speak out the three books.
right.
But for somebody who's really watching this and who's not really read any book in 2022, it's good to at least pick up one from these five or six names. That's the idea.
Right.
It helps that person
That's
pick up
true.
one book at least.
Right,
And
sir.
wherever
And I think in today's world, non-fiction is picking up more pace than fiction because
That's
people are
true.
more inclined towards how to improve their life, how to grow their money,
Hmm.
about investing, about finance. So self-help books are something
Wealth
that everyone is
creation.
starting with.
Hmm.
Right. Self-help books
Hmm.
is everyone's choice nowadays. People, even if they don't read it, the topics are so intriguing, the content is so helpful that people are picking up the non-fiction books. So if someone is starting out, if they are reading, do go for non-fiction books, and they will definitely not only be a good read, but also help you out in life.
Yeah. But again, one thing I would like to mention that don't always go for, picking up hype books. Because what happens, we see reviews that say the book is pretty much hyped upon Bookstagram or Instagram, whatever. But then we feel, kind of regret ki yaar kyun kharidi. Say, for example, one book for me was Everything is Fucked Up by Mark Manson. Settle out of not giving a fuck. I mean, it didn't resonate to me. So I think, it's necessary to analyze, to look upon your current needs, how you want to go for, what do you want to learn,
Right.
and then
Right.
pick up the book that you want to read.
Right. Yes, this is where I started. Everyone's need is different to read. Everyone's
Hmm.
choices are different. So it comes down to that only. Very interesting question, sir. Very interesting question,
No,
actually.
so we
Yes.
all know that. So that's a very interesting MBA answer. You know,
Yeah.
when I was studying MBA, when I was in the IIM, so especially in the marketing and strategy subjects, any question that the teacher asks you, I still remember there were a couple of students in the class who always used to start with, "Sir, it depends." So obviously, when
Yeah.
you're doing a marketing or a strategy class, you start off with, "Sir, it depends on the situation." Now, obviously,
Yeah.
you actually need to spell out your situation. So, like what you mentioned, you've given some flair of fiction books, some things around non-fiction. Now, if people were to ask me, I'm more like a business-oriented person. I first book which I always recommend. So I also teach at a couple of business schools. First book which I always recommend to people is "It Happened in India." Now, that's if you really want to have that entrepreneurial mindset. That's a book by Kishore Biani. He is known as the father of modern retail in India. He's done some phenomenal work in the Indian retail space. So for some people who are watching this and they really want to have that entrepreneurial mindset, this is the book that you start off with. And if you really want to be in that self improvement zone, which Mohit also mentioned, something which is catching up now, then something on
Mhm.
what got you there won't get you there, a book by Marshall Goldsmith. And yes, I've been a great reader in terms of even
Hmm.
mythology. I really don't consider Ramayana and Mahabharata to be mythology, but yes, people call that as mythology. And I really love to read what Devdutt Patnaik talks about. I read two of his books in terms of
Yes.
Hanuman Chalisa.
Mm-hmm.
He's written a number of books. Now, all these texts are interpretations because
Hmm.
yeah, anything on Ramayana, Mahabharata, Hanuman Chalisa would be an interpretation of how you interpret the events which took place. So
Yes.
when you read
Hmm.
this, it's an interpretation of somebody, but for somebody who really spent so many years now. So again, given you something on self-help, something on business, and something on mythology also. So
Spiritual,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
actually.
yeah, you need to decide. You need to pick up whichever genre you really want.
Hmm.
I would like to add one thing, sir. Right when
Yes.
you mentioned about Mahabharata and Ramayana, actually, I did not get a lot of time to read during COVID because I was busy with many projects. So I started hearing a podcast on Spotify that was based on Mahabharata. Okay. Before that, I had never watched Mahabharata, never read Mahabharata. Please curse me if you want to, but I had never done that. Okay. So what happened? That podcast changed my life. I understood every problem that was happening with me, why it was happening with me, and what was the solution to it. So I think if you want to, get all the answers in your life, Mahabharat it is. Mahabharat it is. I repeat, and the person, they will be enlightened. They will have a positive attitude, and nothing will hurdle their way. You know, it is such a good book. Since the ages, since thousands of years, we've been continuing it, and it's awesome. Mahabharat it is.
So
Mhm.
many a times it takes an Englishman to inspire us, and this is exactly what happened with me. You were being honest in terms of you not having devoted any time. I happened to attend two events of Marshall Goldsmith. Those were live sessions, and incidentally, those were free sessions early part of 2020. I happened to attend two of his live events, Marshall Goldsmith. And he swears by one book. He says the maximum of learnings which have happened in my life of late have been through one book. And he talks about Bhagavad Gita. So he's the
Yeah.
number one coach in the world. He's supposedly the best coach today in the world, Marshall Goldsmith. And he swears by one book, Bhagavad Gita. He says that book has all the answers. You hear you hear a foreign author talking about Bhagavad Gita, and then you realize there ought to be
Yes.
something else. You start reading Bhagavad Gita. So I'm thankful at
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
many of us at least take inspiration from these Englishmen or foreign authors, and we delve deeper into our culture and learn more from our books.
Very proud feeling
Yeah.
indeed. Very proud feeling.
Yeah.
So okay, so finally before wrapping it up, so I just want you to share your, let's say, future plans. When I say future, not really looking at the next 28 years as to how future would unfold in 2040. But yes, another
Because
let's say,
that's unpredictable.
no, no, you should have a vision for you in 2047. See, when the Indian government has a vision for India in 2047, you definitely ought to have something for yourself. But let's talk about the next 2 3 years. So, what do you see yourself doing in the next 2 3 years? So,
Starting
Mohit,
with,
yeah, Mohit,
okay. Okay, so if you talk about the next 3 years, I'm graduating college in the next 2 months. So what I see myself is that I will be quitting my corporate jobs. I will be quitting content writing and content strategizing or whatever. I will be focusing completely on writing. I will be gaining all my income from that source because I believe in multiple sources of income. I truly believe in that. For that, I have a separate venture where we deal in artworks, where we deal in paintings and sculptures. So that is a side business of mine. But for mainly writing, I would like to focus on fiction. I would like to grow in that field. I would like to tell people what my story is, what my creativity is. So that is where I see myself. I see myself quitting all the corporate jobs and taking all the burden off of myself and doing what I love. That is my thing. And also, there are many ambitions. I am young. I have many ambitions. I have time. So I just tell life, bring it on. I will accomplish it all.
perfect, perfect. Very nice,
Thank you.
Mohit.
Thank you so much.
How about you, Sonali?
Well, that's true. What he said, I agreed because when we are young, we have many things in mind to do this and that. For me, definitely, it is like first thing I wish like I would be clearing my CMA finals. So it will be CMA Sonali Sharma along with author and freelancer. Then it will be running my agency successfully because like I'm starting out, so, getting a proper team, hiring right people, and in near future it can also be since I'm trying to learn guitar, so maybe like 2 3 music albums like in near future. So let's see how it goes. So it's like definitely doing what you love to do and definitely helping people and businesses to
True.
upscale their businesses and their whatever in which field they wish to grow through content. So it's like leveraging brands and businesses through content because I feel जहाँ business है वहाँ content है because whatever we
Right.
perceive, whatever we see, whatever we learn, it's all about content that you look around. So it just, it's a thing like how you connect the content with people and business, how you try to perceive and empathize people with content and business and bridge the gap between them. So I think that is what I aim for in near future.
परफेक्ट अभी सोनाली जैसे बात कर रही थी ना कि मैं गिटार भी सीखना चाहता हूँ मेरे को एकदम इमेज ख्याल आई सोनाली के एक हाथ में किताब एक हाथ में गिटार और सोनाली अपनी किताब में से कुछ पढ़ रही है और गिटार बजा रही है मतलब मुझे एकदम वो फीलिंग
That's perfect spoken poetry. I'll definitely do that.
perfect perfect see it's so very wonderful to be talking to both of you especially at your age I still remember we were pretty focused I was pretty focused at your age I was pretty focused in getting a great job buying all those things which I had thought about in my college days, and not really thinking about my passion. But I really feel proud when I speak to some of you now, fresh out of college, or just about getting into the corporate world and making a decision to be on your own. And so it took me a while to be an entrepreneur, but most of the young people I meet today, are definitely having that entrepreneurial mindset. I'm so very happy that our country is really bound towards a very bright future, really destined towards a very bright future. And it's all because of people like you. So fantastic talking to both of you, Mohit and Sonali.
Thank you.
And I am sure
Likewise.
people watching this may have really, they're really going to take back some inspiration. At least they have a couple of names in terms of books. Some of you will start reading something. Some of you will definitely start planning for what you need to do in the future. It's been a wonderful, wonderful, and a fruitful conversation. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Thank you,
much
Sonali.
for
Thank you,
having us.
Vikas, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Bye bye.
so I believe you can leave now. I
Okay.
just need to ask my team. I don't know how to stop this session. Just a minute. Like, on top, you will see end session. Where is that button? I can't see that. Can you see a button on the top corner which says end session?
There's a button for
Mm,
leaving.
Leave studio. I can see
the
that.
crossed one. Hmm.
No, and anyways, let's leave the studio.
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
miss conversation whenever they have to. See you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Again,
Bye
thank you, sir,
bye.
for having us. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
Yeah.
you
us.
so much, sir, for having us. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.